Okay, picture this. It's June of 1800. Napoleon Bonaparte is on the brink of absolute disaster. His army is shattered, his enemies are celebrating, and his entire career is about to go up in flames. And yet, by the time the sun sets on that very same day, he pulls off one of the most unbelievable and important victories in all of history. So let's get into the incredible story of Napoleon's greatest comeback, the Battle of Marengo.
You know, the really wild part about all this is the irony. Napoleon had this brilliant moment of foresight. He absolutely knew that this specific plain would be where the final showdown happened. What he got disastrously wrong was pretty much everything else.
So let's set the scene here. Napoleon has just pulled off one of the most audacious moves in military history, right? He's marched his entire army over the Alps to sneak in behind the Austrians in Italy. In his mind, he's got them perfectly trapped. All he has to do now is just close the net.
But this is the huge miscalculation. Napoleon is completely convinced the Austrian commander, General Melas, is on the run. He's been misled by his own scouts and maybe a little by his own supreme confidence. But the reality, it couldn't be more different. Melas wasn't running anywhere. In fact, he'd gathered 30,000 veteran soldiers and was getting ready to launch a massive surprise attack.
And this right here really shows you the kind of danger Napoleon was in. I mean, not only was he about to be hit by a surprise attack he didn't see coming, but he was seriously outmatched. He's got 22,000 guys on the field against 30,000 Austrians. And on top of that, the Austrians had way more cavalry and way more cannons. Napoleon's brilliant gamble was about to blow up in his face. All right, let's jump to the morning of June 14th, because this is where things get really bad, really fast. The sun comes up, the Austrian army starts to move, and Napoleon's forces, who are scattered and totally unprepared, suddenly find themselves in a fight for their lives. The whole morning is just a slow-motion catastrophe for the French. At 8 a.m., the attack hits. By 11, they're barely hanging on along this little stream. By noon, the full weight of the Austrian army is crushing down on them. We're talking overwhelming numbers, overwhelming artillery fire. And by 3 in the afternoon, it's over. The French line completely shatters.
And look, these weren't green recruits getting steamrolled. These were veteran divisions under some of Napoleon's best generals, Victor and Lannes. But they were exhausted. Some units were literally out of ammunition. They were just being swamped. They had no choice but to fall back.
Napoleon, finally realizing just how bad things are, gallops to the front. He's got one last card up his sleeve, his personal bodyguard, the elite consular guard. He throws all 900 of them into the fight, calling them his granite redoubt, just hoping they can buy him a little time. But even granite can crumble. The guard fought like lions, but they were all alone. When a wave of Austrian dragoons smashed into their exposed side, the unthinkable happened. The guard broke. For every French soldier on that field, this was the moment that all hope just seemed to die.
And if you want to understand the scale of this disaster, just look at this number. After hours of brutal combat, with all the casualties and men scattering in the retreat, Napoleon was left with only 6,000 effective soldiers in any kind of organized line. The defeat was absolute.
At this exact moment, the 71-year-old Austrian general, Melas, is so convinced he's won that he actually rides off the battlefield to go write his victory report. He has absolutely no idea that history is about to take one of the most dramatic turns you can possibly imagine.
See, hours earlier, in the moment of pure desperation, Napoleon had scribbled this note to one of his best generals, Desaix, who he had sent off on another mission. And listen to it. It's not a command, it's a plea. Come in the name of God if you still can.
And then, like a miracle, he does. At 5 p.m., just as the French army is hitting its absolute breaking point, Desaix and 5,000 fresh troops appear on the horizon. The news spreads through the French ranks like an electric shock. Total despair instantly turns into a glimmer of hope.
Napoleon does not waste a second. What happens next is just a perfectly timed, lightning-fast counterpunch. First, boom. Every single cannon he has left opens fire on the advancing Austrians. Then, Desaix leads his fresh troops in a furious charge right at them. And at that perfect critical moment, General Kellerman smashes 400 heavy cavalry right into the Austrians' vulnerable side.
But this incredible, unbelievable turnaround comes at a terrible, terrible price. Right as he's leading the charge that saves the entire army, General Desaix is hit by a musket ball and killed on the spot. The hero of the hour doesn't even live to see the victory he just created.
The effect of that French counterattack is just devastating. An Austrian ammunition wagon explodes in the middle of all the chaos, their senior general gets captured, and what was a victorious army just minutes before dissolves into total panic. The entire Austrian army collapses and flees the field.
So the French had won. Against all possible odds, they had turned a catastrophic defeat into a jaw-dropping victory. But this was no glorious, clean triumph. It was a bloody, brutal, and really somber day.
I mean, just look at the butcher's bill here. The French lost a quarter of their entire army in a single afternoon. The Austrians lost even more. Over a third of their force was gone. This wasn't some brilliant chess match. It was an absolute slugfest with staggering losses for everyone involved.
And for Napoleon himself, the victory was deeply bittersweet. You can really hear it in his own words about his friend and savior, General Desaix. The whole thing just felt hollow, tainted by the loss of the one man who had made it all possible.
So you have to ask, why does this messy, near disaster of a battle matter so much? Well, because Marengo did more than just win a campaign. It forged the Napoleonic legend and secured his entire political future.
The immediate consequences were just huge. The Austrians were kicked out of northwest Italy, putting France back in charge of the region. Back home in Paris, this victory cemented Napoleon's shaky political power as first consul, and it directly led to a treaty that expanded France's borders all the way to the Rhine River.
But maybe the biggest impact of all was what happened inside Napoleon's own mind. For him, the almost supernatural way he snatched victory from the jaws of certain defeat, that wasn't just luck. To him, it was proof. Proof that he truly was a man of destiny and that fate itself was on his side.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. Was the Battle of Marengo a true masterpiece of Napoleon's genius, his ability to rally his men and grab an opportunity out of thin air? Or was it just an incredibly reckless gamble, saved at the last possible